Okay, so today we are going to study Baroque and classical music, and then our style of painting in this unit is Rococo. So let's begin with Baroque music. Like I said, on your test, I'll play 3 songs. You have to pick out which one is Baroque, which one's classical. All right, here we go. Characteristics of Baroque music. First of all, it's much more emotional than the Renaissance. Remember, the Renaissance music was a guitar and a wooden flute sitting around a campfire, or it was monks droning. Remember we played that music for you? This will sound really, really different. Oh my goodness, so different. It is very formal and rigid in design. If you listen to a song on the radio, you'll notice how they have a pattern. Usually it'll start with a verse, and then there'll be the chorus, the part that everybody knows and can sing, right? Then it'll go to another verse, and then they'll play the chorus like 10 times over and over and over again, right? That's the form. Well, during the Baroque period, there was an expectation that you followed the same form every single song, and everybody was required to follow that. So it was very, very controlled. You'll hear the melody repeated over and over again. Things to listen for. I'm going to point out the most important ones. First of all, instruments are more important than voice. So you aren't going to hear a song, like a singing song, during the Baroque period, at least for your test anyway. Okay? Secondly, this is where we see small groups playing together. We don't have a huge 50-person orchestra with drums and trumpets. It is a small group, maybe 10 or less. So listen for just a few people as compared to a whole orchestra. Okay? Instruments that you'll listen for. The first one is the harpsichord. We don't have a piano yet. It looks a lot like it, but it works a little differently. So if you've ever looked inside a piano, what happens when you push the key down on the piano? Okay, and what happens inside? What does? Yeah. Hammer? The hammer does what? It hits the string, right? And the harder it hits, the louder it resonates, right? Well, in a harpsichord, the reason it sounds different is when you push that key, it plucks a string. It's kind of like plucking a violin. So let's play it for you so you know what it sounds like here, okay? Hope this works at home. I'm not sure if it'll sound, but we'll try it. For Pete's sakes. There we go. See how it sounds different? Kind of ting. You can hear the plucking, right? And there's only so loud you can play it because you can only pluck so loud, you know? Okay, stop there. All right, other instruments to listen for. What is this one right here? Oboe, very good. We don't have clarinet yet, hasn't been invented, but the oboe sounds kind of like a clarinet, only it's kind of nasally like this, right? Yeah. We also have flutes during this era, and we're starting to see wooden flutes eventually. Or, excuse me, wooden flutes, and then we go to metal flutes. And then we have violin, viola, cello, all the strings. So you're going to hear a lot of strings, lots and lots. So those are the things you're going to hear. You're not going to hear a saxophone. You're not going to hear a trumpet or anything like that. It's very simplified. Okay, other things to know. It will be the same mood throughout the whole piece. If it starts out sad, it's going to be sad to the end. If it's exciting, it'll be exciting to the end. When the dynamics shift, it is sudden, like stepping off of a step. First of all, what are dynamics? Yeah, louds or softs. So instead of being gradually getting louder, it'll be instant. And the reason for that is because the instruments, there's only so loud you can play a trumpet or a harpsichord. So what they would do is if they wanted a quiet part, they would start with these 2 playing. And then when they wanted a loud part, they would add 6 more. So that's why it's immediately loud, because you add so many people. It's just a technique that they use quite a bit. Whereas in a trumpet, any of you play trumpet or did play trumpet? Yeah, you know that it can start quiet and it can get really loud, can it? Just by blowing more air through it. Good. Okay, it is polyphonic in texture. What does poly mean? Do you remember? Many, yes, you knew the answer. Yeah, So you're going to hear two or more melodic lines kind of interweaving with each other. That's another thing that you'll hear. And my last clue, it sounds like church music. And the reason? Because almost all of it was written for church. So let's play an example for you. This one was done by Bach, probably the most famous of all the Baroque composers. It's called Air on the G String. And as you listen to this little clip, I want you to come up with 3 things that make it Baroque. Are you ready? I'm going to call on you, so listen carefully. Okay, are you ready? Okay, give me one thing that makes this Baroque. 2 melodies interweaving. Very good. Give me another one. Tatum. The strings, lots of strings, right? Good. Cole, give us one more. What makes it Baroque?
I don't know. I was gonna say it sounds like violins or something, but it's got kind of good.
Yeah, that was the strings. Okay, I'll give you a clue. How many instruments do you think there were? Was it a full orchestra? No. It was a small group, right? So listen for those small groups, okay? Another characteristic that you might have noticed if you listen really carefully is in the background they used harpsichord that was kind of accompanying the strings in this particular piece, okay? The next one is kind of an exception to the rule. On your test, I'm going to use an example that uses almost all the characteristics on your list. But this is kind of a really famous piece. It's by Handel, and it's called The Messiah. The part I'm going to play for you is the Hallelujah Chorus. So in this case, we're breaking the rules in that we are having singers, and we are going to hear like timpani and stuff, because nowadays we play these full out as big as we can. But I still want you to listen to some examples that make this Baroque, okay? Now at home, I'm not sure if you're getting these songs, but if nothing else, you can just look them up on YouTube and listen to them so you know what to listen for your test. I'm sorry if that doesn't work. Okay, here we go. Let's listen. All right, how many of you have heard that song before? Yeah, I would say about half of you, right? It's really famous. It's often used in movies when there's a great part of the movie or a beautiful painting. You know, it's used quite often. So, like I said, it breaks the rules in that we have songs and all that kind of stuff, or singing. But what things make this Baroque? Lots of strings. Good. Good. What else? Here, hold on. Sorry about that, we got interrupted. We also hear that repeating melody kind of interweaving with each other all over and over. You also notice that we had from loud to soft, really obvious. We start with a smaller group and then we get a really bigger group as well. Okay? Like I said though, your example on the test will be more like Bach's. That will be more obvious. Small group, strings only, that kind of thing. Okay? Okay, let's look at our examples of characteristics of classical music, because we have 2 kinds in this chapter. This is where a full orchestra becomes important. So the orchestras that we know of today in size, yes, are important. However, the instruments are going to be a little different. We still have no trumpets or things like that. So we'll kind of show that to you in a minute. We're going to hear more wind instruments. Wind means that we blow air through it. So we're going to hear more of our oboes and our or flutes, stuff like that. Whereas in the Baroque period, it's more like one or two of them, maybe doing a solo with the rest behind them, something like that. You will see that they have a little more freedom to express themselves. They might use a quartet. They might do a symphony, a sonata, a concerto. They're allowed to do different styles of music, not as rigid in design. You'll see that they have various moods by section. So let's say that I want to do a song that has sadness in it and excitement in it. Well, what I do is I would break it into two parts. And if you've ever been to a concert where you notice like nobody claps, but it's the end of the song, and yet they're not done yet, that's usually something like this, where it's movement number one is this kind, and movement number two is this kind of move. And then you clap at the end of the song. You'll see the beginning of crescendos and decrescendos. Again, this has to do with volume, right? So crescendos mean you start really quiet and you get louder and louder and louder and louder and louder, right? But it's gradual. Decrescendos mean you start really loud and then you get softer and softer and softer. Okay, but it's gradual. And the reason that we can do that now is because we're using more wind instruments. And we can control that volume because of the amount of air we blow through our instruments. You'll hear that the melodies will question and answer each other. So that's something that we saw in the last unit with Baroque. So that's probably not something we can use to find the classical song. What do we notice? First of all, what do we see? The piano, yes. We have the invention of the piano during the classical period. So if you hear a piano song, that will be classical in this test anyway. Good. You'll also see music will change because we see that music starts becoming music for all classes. During the Baroque period, music was mostly done in church, and it was mostly done for the upper class, the royalty, the religious. But in this case, they're doing operas, for example. So now we see a beginning of opera singing. And they're writing them for lower class, middle class people. In fact, they're allowing lower and middle class to learn how to play music or sing music. So it's really cool that anybody can be a part of music. We're going to start seeing the beginning of secular music. What does secular mean again? Remember? Non-religious, right? So not all music is written for church. We might have music done for a play, or we might have music for a birthday party. I mean, who knows? All different kinds of things. You're going to hear more types of opera. So like I said, opera is now a classical characteristic. They'll have comedies, they'll have romances, prose, tragedies, all kinds of stuff. One of the things that I use to kind of test classical music is this. It's called too many notes. It only works on a fast song. Slow songs, it doesn't work. But one of the things that classical artists were kind of known for is they wanted to really show off their fingers. And I mean, like when you play the piano on a fast song, they wanted to show how many keys they could hit, how fast, and kind of go all the way across all the keys of the piano. If you're playing a flute, they wanted to hit as many notes as possible, as quickly as possible. So when you get to a fast song, see if you can actually hum the melody. If you can hum the melody, then it's probably not classical, because classical jumps all over the place and it's very hard to hum. I'll give you an example of that coming up here. And like we said, this is the beginning of the piano. We don't have the pedal yet. Now, what does the pedal do on a piano? Yeah, it holds a note or it dampens the note, okay? We don't have that yet. We just have the straight piano. So we'll hear the sound of the piano with those hammers hitting its strings. Okay, so let's look at some samples. Probably the most famous classical musician is Mozart. This is Sonata for Piano number 8 in A minor. As you listen to this, again, look for characteristics that make this classical, okay? See if you can hum this melody. Okay. What's the most obvious example that it's classical? Yep, it's done on piano. And piano is a new invention for this era. So that's number one. What else do you notice? Too many notes. Absolutely. You definitely couldn't hum that theme, could you? Because again, Mozart is showing off his fingers. He's showing how many notes he can hit on quickly, and he's going all over the keyboard as fast as he can. Good. Can you think of one more? Ah, good. We're getting crescendos and decrescendos. So it builds gradually and gets louder. Good. Excellent. Nice job. All right, let's look at another one. This one is done by Haydn, and it's called Symphony Number 94 in G. We are going to listen to the second part, which is called Andante, but it's commonly known as the Surprise Symphony. Again, this time, listen for your characteristics, but also see if you can figure out why it's called the Surprise Symphony. Okay, so obviously, why is it called the Surprise Symphony? Yeah, it starts so quiet, you almost can't even hear it, right? And then all of a sudden, it just blares really loud. And he did that on purpose, because as they started to experiment with louds and softs, they found during the soft parts that the audience members were kind of dozing off to sleep. So it was kind of a joke. It was his way to wake up his audience every once in a while. So he would throw one of those in there. Okay? What other things make this classical? Good. We're hearing a full orchestra now, a full group. Okay? 30 to 50. Okay? What else? Good. Great variations in louds and softs. Now, in his case, it's kind of like stepping off of a step like we did with Baroque, but he's doing that because it's part of the joke, right? Okay? But what kind of instruments did we hear primarily? Yeah, we didn't hear trumpets yet, right? This was strings, and it was woodwinds, right? It was like your oboes and your flutes and stuff like that. Good. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the painting style for chapter 10 and 11, and that is the Rococo style. Now, if you look at the word Rococo, that in itself is a clue for you, because the term Rococo in French means shell. Because here's what they found. The type of shrubbery they used in these paintings during this era, they used a shell technique. So here's what they would do. They would take little shell-like looks, little things like this, and voila! Those little shells created a flower or a bush, okay? So when you see shrubbery or flowers in any of these paintings, you'll notice they have kind of a rounded look because they used the shell technique when they did any of the shrubbery. Okay, so that's one technique to look for. So look for shell. And they may even use that technique on other things besides shrubbery too. Just be aware of that. Now this is primarily a French phenomenon. So it started in France. It is a painting that shows aristocrats. So these are nobles who are the wealthy, the rich, and you can tell because they have no rips in their clothing. They're wearing the most beautiful stuff. You can tell that they are wealthy. They are usually doing some kind of a leisure time activity because nobles can afford to do that. They don't have to work, 20 hours a day, and they're not all dirty. They have to do something. So they might be reading a book or going on a picnic or playing a game or singing a song, anything that's kind of a leisure time activity. For example, a picnic in a beautiful natural environment. We'll see that these aristocrats are wearing gorgeous clothing because, of course, they can afford it. The colors are changing. They're very gentle, and we're starting to use pastels like pinks, light blues, yellows, light greens, stuff like that. That's kind of new. The figures you'll notice are very beautiful. They're tall and slender, elegant, and graceful. You're not going to see somebody who's greatly overweight or has zits all over their face because they want to show the beauty of the world and they don't want anything to make it look ugly. They'll use peaceful, natural settings with feathery trees and sprays of foliage. So quite often they'll show you those beautiful flowers and shrubs and trees in the background. And as I said, there is no event to disturb the happiness of the actors of the setting. It's all about beauty in the world, nothing to show bloodiness or war or anything that's negative. It's all beauty. So it's really easy to spot. Now, just like any other era, there are certain fads that are popular. During this era, roses were the thing. So you will see roses in quite a few of these paintings. And it was also the thing for nobles of that day to get their portrait painted with their pet. So you will quite often find an animal in your painting as well. And you'll see I laid out some in each group out on your desks there. And in just a minute, I'm going to let you dissect those and figure out what things you see there. A lot of them have pets in there hidden somewhere. This is probably the most famous painting from the Rococo period because it has almost every single characteristic that we mentioned. This is called The Swing by Fragonard. What things do we see that make it a Rococo painting? Beautiful feathery trees, good. We see the shell technique in the foliage, excellent. Beautiful clothing, good. She's elegant and graceful. She's rich. What is she doing? She's swinging on a swing, and you'll notice there are two guys pushing her. They're kind of hard to see, but that's what they're doing. Excellent. What is the only thing that we mentioned that's not on there? We see roses. That's it. There's no pet in this one. That's the only thing that I have figured out on the list that is not on this painting. Okay, let's look at this one. This one's done by Boucher. That's how you say it, Boucher. This is the Marquis de Pompadour. You actually know this woman. If you remember, there was a lady called the Marquis de Pompadour who was famous for what? Having salons. Very good. Yep, having salons. She was known for having a great party, a thinking party, where they would invite the most famous philosophes in the area. And if you remember, this was King Louis's mistress, and she was a commoner. But this painting, of course, shows her that she is a noble in this case. All right, tell me what characteristics do you see? Are you ready? Here we go. Gorgeous clothing, good. How about your group? She's reading, she's doing a leisure activity. What else? Lots of roses, absolutely. Not only on the floor in front here, but notice there are roses within her dress. Yeah, good. The shell technique is being used, very good. Can you come up with another one? She's elegant and beautiful and rich, good. And one more. She's got a pet. Yes, her doggie is right up here in front in the black. Very good, you guys. All right, that ends our notes on Rococo and Classical and Baroque. Good luck on your test.